Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am your Colonial champion, Sean McCarty. This is, of course, a live show. And let me explain to you why you are seeing the most pixelation you have seen since the last technological difficulties that the Commercial Podcast has forthwith engaged upon. And let me break it down for y'all. So, basically what happened was I was working on last week's episode of the Commercial Podcast, episode 73, the one you are going to hear today. And as I was working it, I was ready. I had it done. I actually had it done early. You know, sometimes I have those moments where I'm doing them and they're in like on Saturday or something like an ACPW versus NWL, which you're going to hear today because we drafted 10 more slots to our rosters. So as I'm finished that, I've got it all ready to go. I go to export it. It fails exporting out of my editing software. Try it again. Doesn't work. Wake up in the morning feeling like P. Diddy. Try it again. Doesn't work. And this time now it's just like the day of that I was supposed to have it ready. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess I got to wait till Saturday, thinking that maybe my Wi-Fi is bad. So maybe I'll go up and get my Wi-Fi checked. So I go to my boy's place and I try to export it there. Still no dice. Actually, it was worse than before. It actually was not even getting as far before it decided to just crap out. So I'm like, all right, what the hell's going on? I try again at my house. I go back to my house. This here, the Colonial Dungeon. Try it again. Doesn't work. So I'm like, okay, something's got to be wrong with the editing software. It can't be my computer, right? I've already had enough computer issues to deal with. So I go to checkout and I find out in the App Store for my Mac, which is 8 or 9 years old. I'll actually let me show you what my Mac looks like. It looks like that, folks. That's what you're seeing. That is my macrophone, and that is so. I've got that attached to a television monitor, which you'll see in a second. So. Wow, that totally changed the color of the whole scheme. Now we're very warm. We're very, very warm. There we go. Now we're going back to normal. Oh, warm? Cool. All right, now we're cool. So this is what happens. So I go to this deal, and I go and check out the App Store, and I find that there is an update for iMovie, which is like, okay, fine. There's an update. I'm used to updates, but I was surprised they didn't tell me. Well, the reason they didn't tell me is that this update is incompatible with the age of the Mac, which is 2012. They've just now timed it out. So if you don't have the certain operating system necessary, you can't get the update. So which means that basically they've timed me out of using this free service that I've been using for the past 9 years, excuse me. So what does this mean for the Core Martial Podcast? What it means is until we either get a previous version of iMovie to work, or what's probably going to happen is I'm just going to get a new editing software, even though I really need to get a new Mac. But let's do small baby steps. I'm going to get a new editing software, and that's going to happen this coming weekend. So until then, we're going to have to do the live shows, but this is how we're going to do them. This show was already completed and edited in iMovie, and it still functions on the Mac. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this sucker around, the camera you're seeing. I'm going to flip it over. You're going to watch my television, and you're going to watch this episode of the Court Martial Podcast the way it was intended for your viewing eyes. You're just going to have to watch it on a TV with me. And in the meantime, I'm going to be back here doing stuff. You're probably going to hear me. I'm going to be doing a whole sort of things. There's some certain leafy greens that are more recently acceptable in this state I will probably be partaking in. There's other things like potentially Yu-Gi-Oh! Duels, potentially just wrestling here by myself or getting a test dummy. This is the Colonial Dungeon. I might just be training athletes. I could be here just ripping off my American shirt, taking off my American bathing suit, and just going to town and really just grappling the future wrestlers of today. You'll never know what's going to go on back here. You don't need to worry about what's going back here. You just focus on the television. And we're going to do it like this week, and then on Friday, because this is Monday, on Friday we're going to do this again. So Friday or Saturday, let's see how it goes, but probably Friday. So what we're going to do is Skylar and I are going to record the show, the audio for the show, probably at some point midweek this week, because I'm changing my mind on how we're going to do this. We're going to record the audio midweek this week. Then during that midweek, Skyler is going to give me all of his slides that he usually does because this coming week, this is ACPW versus NWL. Skyler's going to give me all his slides. I'm going to make all my slides. I'm going to edit the show as I would normally, and we're going to do this again. So instead of going to do the whole show live where you can't see any of the back and forth that we've got or any of the hard work that Skyler puts into making his slides and I do in making my slides, we're going to do it. We're just going to edit the show and we're just going to have this feature presentation like this as a live stream. And that's going to have to do at least until I get my editing software up and at 'em. So it's not the worst thing to happen. The Mac still works. Most of the rest of it still works. We're just going to have to deal with this in a little bit of a vacuum. So please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Let's get to this. And for those of you who are curious about anything, I am going to pop in at the very end once it's over. This is, by the way, an hour and 49 minutes. So sit down, grab some popcorn, use the bathroom while you can, bring it into the bathroom with you. I know that you got the technology to do that. And there's nothing more refreshing than listening to my voice while taking a dump. Moving right along, let's get this going so you don't have to hear from me anymore. ACPW versus NWL Season 2, Episode 6, coming up later this week. Stay tuned for that. In the meantime, enjoy this presentation of the Court Martial Podcast, Episode 73, Yesterday's News and the ACPW versus NWL Draft. Bear with me here as I get y'all situated, brother. All right. So this is a very tight window, so I don't know how this is going to go. I'm going to slide. Hello. We're going to slide. Okay, here we go. Look at that. Look how beautiful that is. That looks like a Wiimote. You know why? Because it is a Wiimote. All right, so this is really, really poor quality visual, and that is the way that I believe Abraham intended all of his children to have it. And so I'm going to do something real fun, and I'm going to see if I can unsmudge this camera as if that even matters. Yeah, you love that sound, don't you? All live stream. This is all hands-on experience here. Oh, you know what I'm seeing? I'm actually seeing the light of this stream. That's what I'm catching. Aha! Look at that. Now that is what I'm talking about. That is one spicy meatball. Okay, now over here I have got the audio, so I'm going to just stay here for a couple seconds as this plays so you can tell me whether it's too high, you can tell me whether it's too low, you can tell me whether it's just right in that creamy, smoothie center. All right, so an hour and 49 minutes of this visual. Enjoy, folks. You got to love it. And we are live and proud to be live. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's got to go way up. To the Court Martial Podcast.
Let me know if that's too loud.
First, he is the host with the most from the West Coast, the Bay Area Brawler.
I'm going to work on this.
And his partner, he is colonized.
You all know the intro.
The podcasting wrestling world today. Your Colonial champion, Sean Cody.
Boys, girls, it is time. Welcome here to the Court Martial Podcast, where you can find the greatest in wrestling smartdom among smarts that could possibly ever smart. I am the king of the smarts, the Bay Area Brawler, Skylar Greenberg, and I'm here excited to bring you my personal opinions that matter so much to you. Otherwise, why would you listen? But anyways, I'm excited about today's show. We have a lot of things that's going on in the wrestling world and a lot of things that are going on in our fantasy wrestling world. But I need to talk about it with a man who is the owner of the hottest fantasy wrestling promotion on the Atlantic coast. I am with a man who, when you ask him how he styles his hair, he says, "What style?" I'm with a man who, when you ask who his best friend is, he says, Josh Again, I guess, but do you know Josh Again likes to, do stuff with Keebler elves. Anyways, here is the Colonial champion, Sean McCarty.
Well, sir, you certainly did dig your way in and out of that introduction, but it was well worth getting here. I do have a point of order, though, because I have made the prior claim that to be the king of the smarks. But truthfully, neither of us are the king of the smarks. That belongs to Dave Meltzer. But the king of the Court Martial podcast smarks, that is a title that we can both keep together as co-kings of the Court Martial smarkdom.
Exactly. We are the kings of smartdom, just like...
Yeah, let's save all of that for later. But so we've got a lot. It has been a long time since it's been just you and me on this show. And as a result, a few little bits of information have accumulated up. You know what that means, folks. Roll it.
Coming straight to you from the Golden Gate Garage, this is the Wrestle News with Skylar Green.
That is right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the news of the week with the Bay Area Brawler at your service. And because we've missed a couple of episodes, a lot of news has happened, and we're going to go back a couple of weeks for this news.
Sure.
But I promise you that we should give our opinions on it because it's so important.
And it still feels kind of current because a lot of these things are still ongoing, it seems.
Exactly. So let's get started. Didn't want to mention this already, but we have to mention him. Tony Kahn, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, hooray!
So, Tony Kahn is coming to the news for a couple of things he said in interviews.
This is the guy who thinks he's the king of the smarks, but is not, in fact, the king of the smarks.
Right. The first one is that apparently he's come out and blames the people who were doing the pyrotechnics for the Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley exploding Barbed Wire death match, and says that he's not going to pay them. But he still wants to do a death match in the future because he wants to do it right.
Okay, in what way does that... Wait a second. So you're saying that the pyro guys were to blame, and you're not going to pay the pyro guys, even though that was months ago. And the reason... And you're going to blame them and devoid them of pay so that they're going to want to do it right the next time you do another one of these matches that looks like a complete clown show? Probably with Kenny Omega in it? Maybe the Young Bucks?
Plus, did you not say on the night of the show that you blamed Kenny Omega for not knowing how to build an inspiring death match?
Tony is really not good at these interviews, I've noticed. He is really not a PR person in any way. I mean,
no.
A lot of the times he's definitely, you can tell that he's always nervous on the spot, like being in front of the camera, especially when he gets asked questions like, what the hell is this pasta raining down on me for? Just pasta everywhere. Oh, more pasta. Oh God. It's just a whole set of hard noodles here, ladies and gentlemen, all on my floor. And I'm going to have to clean that up in a little bit, but in any event, the fact of the matter is Tony just does not get that the best policy for these things is just admit you fucked up.
Exactly. Like, here's another thing from another interview. In an interview with Bubba Ray Dudley, of all people, Bubba Ray started questioning him about the refereeing in AEW.
Yes.
And he asked about 20 counts and stuff about referees, and in particular singled out Mike Knox, the bald-headed referee who does the Young Bucks matches.
Rick Knox, whatever. Mike Knox was the guy who got super kicked into oblivion by Shawn Michaels at Survivor Series 2006.
All right, and also had that weird feud with Rey Mysterio.
Oh, yeah.
That happens. Anyways, forgetting random mid-card wrestlers from the yesteryears.
Mid-card is generous for Mike Knox, though.
Yes, it is. But anyways, Rick Knox, who is the bald-headed referee, who is the worst referee I've ever seen.
Does nothing. Does absolutely nothing.
And instead of doing anything to, well, I don't know, protect his referee or say, we're going to do better in the future, he says, oh, no, everything's fine. No, it'll be fine. They're all good.
Yeah,
They're all great referees. They all do their jobs.
That's the thing that bothers me the most about Tony Khan is he's literally the emperor walking through the town without wearing any clothing. He thinks that everything is dandy and hunky-dory and everything is going right, and there's not a damn thing they could do to fix that product. And that's been his attitude from the start. And that's why things have improved zero since the very beginning of AEW, and why the same problems that we were feeling at the beginning of 2019 are the same problems they're having now, just everyone's a year and a half older.
And I've noticed this too, because with every single talent that talks about Tony Khan, they say, oh, he's great, oh, he's wonderful. The way I'm looking at it, he's hired a bunch of yes men to tell him whatever he wants to hear. Except the difference between him and like a guy like Vince McMahon is that Vince McMahon has had success in the wrestling business. Tony Khan does not get a free pass for hiring yes men saying how great he is, because he is not fucking great.
Well, I think I think that works both ways. I'm going to make this distinction here and see if it lines up, because with Vince McMahon, at least you know that, like you said, he knows professional wrestling. He knew at least at one point how it's supposed to work and how the general mechanics of things were and how the relations with talent go. And, there was a time when he knew what he was doing and how to book and how to really make a presentation worth investing in. Tony Khan got a bunch of action figures that he thought were just going to make the magic happen. And all of those people in turn started putting things into his head, and they were telling Tony Khan yes. So it's not quite like Vince hired people specifically to say yes to him. It's that Tony Khan hired these people, and all of those people figured, well, we might as well milk this guy for as much money as he's got. So let's say yes to him in order to continue to make as much money as humanly possible.
Well, not just say yes, but also get money from him and get all this extra TV time and glory to do whatever the hell they wanted.
Yeah.
Like King Omega's parading around with 4 championship belts. The Young Bucks had tag team titles. You got Jon Moxley doing his deathmatch shit. You got Cody Rhodes trying to get Brandy over.
Who we haven't seen in goddamn forever.
Well, he's still trying to get himself and Brandy over because Cody wants to be a star. Not a wrestling star, but just a star in general.
Yep.
Has there ever been a more disappointing second-generation wrestler than Cody Rhodes?
I saw this coming. With Cody the second he named himself the American Nightmare. And I'm like, I know that it's just more and more Cody was going to just sap and leech off things that did not belong to him, accolades he had not earned. And it was inevitably going to turn himself into where he has this God complex about himself. And here's where it is. And the sad thing is, Dusty was very much the same way. And it took sometimes bookers to kind of say, no, that's stupid, or to put Dusty kind of back on the level to rein him in a little bit. And Cody 100% inherited that gene, except there's nobody to stop him now. There's nobody to put him in check because the person writing the checks is taking advice from the guy who's telling him that everything he's doing is right.
Well, that, but also Cody does not have the talent that Dusty has. Not even a quarter of it. Because the way I look at it is that Cody is not at his son's wrestling.
He's not at his brother's level.
He's not at his brother's level. And his brother, notably, while he's good and was known as the natural, he never had it what Dusty had.
It was never capitalized on properly, I don't think. I think Dustin could have been, but it's very fascinating to see. His trajectory we'll never know because Goldust became that became him. We'll never know what a full, pure pro wrestling career Dustin could have had, but it's hard to compare the two just from face level because Dusty was wrestling in a much different wrestling world than Dustin did by the time that Dustin really got going.
But
Cody's not near either of them to bring the point home.
Right. But going back and all the way back to this, Tony Khan, in the same way, is not the success his father, Shad Khan, is. And you can see that with his football teams. both the American and the English one.
And you see it just
with his wrestling.
You see it just from the reason that Shad Khan gave Tony the money to begin with. And I don't know if this is impeding or stepping on the toes of one of your stories, but Tony Khan explicitly said the other day, it's like, oh, I personally thought it was a dumb as shit idea, but, you know, I just want to see him blow some money of mine before I die.
Which is just, when you are that rich, you can afford to just say, hey, here, take some money and go burn it.
Yeah, that's fuck you money. That's 100% fuck you money. And I'm not surprised that, but it's just, I think it's funny that even Shad Khan was like, that's fucking stupid. But it's interesting to me because that kind of tells me that Shad Khan may not ever interfere when it comes to what Tony's doing. That if he loses all 100 million of that, he's not going to care.
Well, I'm wondering, okay, let's say, because Shad Khan right now, he's 70 years old, okay? He's in good health, but, I mean, you know, time comes for everybody.
Yeah.
When Tony Khan and his sister inherit the business, do you think he's going to spend it all and go bankrupt?
I think his sister might be fine. I think Tony might go down the Herb Abrams route and rent out the MGM Grand with his money on, then blow the rest on cocaine and hookers. And, well, I'm kidding. He's not getting hookers. That's not happening.
But he's definitely doing drugs based on his eyes whenever you see him in press conference reviews. You see how bug-eyed he is.
Yeah, he's bug-eyed, and I know he knows he's on the spot. He just cannot handle pressure at all.
Exactly, and that's why he's allowed AEW to become what AEW has. And it's really disappointing because if he had surrounded himself with good wrestlers, and he was just the silent owner who provided all the financial backing and did nothing involved in the business, and he let the people who knew what the hell they were doing to run the business, maybe AEW would be better than where it is.
Yeah, but that wasn't the point of the whole thing to begin with. I think Tony was not so much a wrestling fan as he was a Young Bucks fan. And he was an anti-WWE, you know, one of those, like, ultimate contrarian to WWE style. And I think that's why he immediately gravitated to people like the Bucks and Kenny Omega and even Cody. I mean, God, you know, I want to like Cody. I like his in-ring work, but, like, every time something comes out of his mouth, that isn't a promo, I just dislike him even more.
And even Cody's promos have sucked. Like that promos against Anthony Ogogo and the whole United States versus United Kingdom shit. Like, come on.
You know, because we're still fighting the Revolutionary War. But just like, for example, it's Cody's words that say that baby faces and heels are tired old tropes. It's Cody's words that are pretty much validating all of these people to do all of the things that we complain about week in and week out. Even though he's doing the right things in the ring, we forget that his ideology about what the business should be is just as cancerous as what the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega do in the ring.
By the way, you shouldn't say that about Cody because I don't know if you've watched any of his recent matches, but they're not good.
I haven't. I honestly haven't because I haven't been interested.
Exactly. Any interest that you or me had in AEW is dead. And I don't know if you're planning on watching the next show. I'm not.
I know you're not.
But are you going to?
I'm probably masochistically going to watch the show because there's something I can handle a train wreck once every quarter. That's the way I view it. It's like I couldn't watch the TV show. I could not possibly watch this TV show or the YouTube show or the other YouTube show or the other TV show.
Wait, hold on. I want you to go back a second. You say you can handle a train wreck every quarter, right?
Once a quarter because they do 4 shows a year.
So Jesus, being a Tampa Bay Bucks fan has prepared you for AEW, hasn't it?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, when you're hurt for 13 consecutive years, let this past year, forget this past year, but when you were hurt for 13 consecutive years of being excited, disappointed, excited, disappointed, you just become numb to that whole sensation. So with AEW, I've learned how much I can actually like take of of what they give. You know, how it's like how many Big Macs can you eat before that black sludge ends up destroying your stomach? You know, you got to learn the levels of these kinds of things. So I've learned how much AEW poison I can ingest without it giving me some sort of mental or physical condition.
Well, as a San Jose Sharks fan, all I have to just say is me too.
Yeah, you get it. You get it. So that's why I don't even blame you a bit for not even wanting to watch the show at all.
No. Anyways, we're going to move away from AEW because I'm tired of AEW.
Yeah, please.
And we're going to move to Stamford, Connecticut and WWE.
Even better.
Improvement. I'm not even sure if that's an improvement, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely a lateral move.
WWE a couple of weeks ago had a series of releases from their rosters, mainly from NXT and 205 Live. Is that the show that's updated?
That show's still around?
I guess. So I'm going to rapid fire these names. You just give me your quick reactions to them.
Okay. I apologize to anybody I may not know because it's going to sound disrespectful, but sorry in advance.
Fandango.
I was a little upset about Fandango. I think he could do better somewhere else.
He's been with WWE for 14 years. That's an accomplishment.
That's crazy, but that also concerns me.
Yeah, but I think he's also one of those guys that he's 39. I'm not sure if he's going to be wrestling much longer, but hey.
Well, he doesn't have to wrestle full-time.
Yeah. Follow Ron Fandango. You beat Chris Jericho in your first WrestleMania match, so there's something.
And his music got to like number 3 on the charts in UK. I think it actually topped the charts in UK.
Because the United Kingdom likes stupid shit.
Yeah.
Speaking of stupid shit, Tyler Breeze.
You know, this was probably the one of all of them I actually was a little disappointed in because I was watching his older NXT stuff when he was facing Juice and Liger and when he was like way more factored into NXT. He was good. He knew what he was doing. He could move around. He has a look. He's good as that smarmy, self-centered guy. It's just they gimmicked the crap out of this dude. And now it's like, who cares?
Like, Tyler Breeze is one of those first success stories of the early days of NXT.
Yeah.
A guy who was not a major independent star, but worked hard and became a solid, reliable mid-card heel.
Did a great job. I thought his NXT work was exemplary.
I just hate that his first main roster feud was with the guy that he was mostly closely associated to, and that was Dolph Ziggler.
Yeah, well, because everybody's got to beat Dolph Ziggler, but that did really kind of destroy his edge because it immediately made him look like another interchangeable schmuck on the roster, and that didn't help.
It made him a poor man's Dolph Ziggler, who was a poor man's Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, Everrise, Chase Parker, and Matt Martell, an NXT tag team.
I've never seen him. I can't say one way or another.
Okay. Arya Davari.
I've seen a few of his things. I think he's better elsewhere as well. Maybe joining his brother Sean in MLW.
Tony Nese.
God, he's been around for a long time. Not even just in WWE. He's just been around as a person for a long time. I remember when he was doing that X Division stuff in TNA in like 2010. Good wrestler, small, but good wrestler. Probably will find consistent work.
Remember when Arya Davari and Tony Nese were part of the CWC, and the Cruiserweight Classic was one of the best things that WWE had going for it in 2016?
Yeah. Oh, how the times have changed.
Subscribe.
Yeah. Speaking of that, the Bollywood boys, Sunil and Samir Singh.
You know, I didn't hate them for what they were, but it just kind of reaffirms that they have no plan of having Jinder Mahal be taken seriously at all. I know he's about to do this thing with Drew, but they're going to gum up the storyline. I know it. I just know it. And this just further proves that the Jinder Mahal experiment is long and truly over and will never resuscitate. So help me God.
Hopefully, they inspire more Indian wrestlers to become better than Jinder Mahal.
Well, these guys are going to do just fine because they're really small, but as a tag team, there is an appeal for a certain particular audience for small, undersized tag teams.
Yep. Marina Shafir, a.k.a. Roddy Strong's wife.
She wasn't that good. Booty!
No.
That's
I
all I got to say about that.
In hindsight, that 4 horsemoon versus 4 horsemoon thing is so good that it never happened.
Would have been horrible. They were never going to be at the level that, at the very best, if you had gone with, at the time, for, what they were conceptualizing at the time, if you'd done Charlotte and Sasha versus Shayna and Ronda, that could have been fine. But I wouldn't have done anything else.
Yeah, but in order for it to work, you would have the 4 versus the 4. Also,
I know.
We should mention, by the way, that the 4 horsewomen of MMA, it was really just Ronda Rousey and the Geeks because the other 3 didn't really have that much success. I mean, Shayna was okay. Jasmine Duke and Marina Shafir were not that great in the cage.
No. Which is why apparently they weren't that good at professional wrestling either, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But hey, congratulations to Marina on being a mom, and hopefully her and Roddy can do well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And this is the name that I got pissed the most because they wasted him. This guy, they wasted. Killian Dane.
I'm going to say
something. How do you fuck up a guy that big and that athletic?
I'm going to say something controversial. I never saw it.
Sure.
I never saw it.
You are part of the problem, sir.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that he wasn't good at what he did. I never saw it. It never came for me. And I'm not saying that he didn't captivate a lot of people and that his athleticism isn't incredible. It is. He's done some crazy stuff. But maybe it's the name. Maybe it's the name that did it. I don't know what it was, but just something with him never clicked with me. And I can't quite explain to you what.
Okay. Let me dismantle Killian Dane in 2 sentences, okay?
Fine.
Was Killian Dane a big athletic guy who could move around and do wrestling moves that were amazing? Yes. Was Killian Dane also a guy who had no personality whatsoever? Yes.
Yeah. Maybe that's it.
Like, Killian Dane was all stare at me and look at my crazy eyes, but you never saw him give him a microphone, and there was a reason for that.
Well, if WWE gave a fuck about managers beyond Paul Heyman and the occasional valet, we wouldn't have this problem. Because people like that would have managers, and that would be it. And people like that could be capitalized and used on properly. You remember, what was the name? The Authors of Pain, who were doing great with Paul Ellering doing all the talking. And then they switched them for Drake Maverick, and now I think, are they even still? No, they're both gone too now, aren't they?
Yeah, they were part of the earlier.
They were the first wave
this year.
Right? That was the first scythe.
Yeah, they were part of the the April releases.
Yep.
And then there was the June releases, and these are the July releases.
And there's more coming, I would bet.
Yeah, there's more coming because the Kahn of WWE, Nick Kahn, is looking to trim the fat. And here's the funny thing that I need to take from this whole thing. Wrestlers get released from wrestling companies all the time.
Yep.
Let's stop pretending that this is all bad. This is part of the cycle of talent. And how wrestling should work is that talented wrestlers go to companies, and then they should work for them, and after a time, they should move on to somewhere else if they're not clicking, or if a company's used them, and they don't have anything left. That's fine. And I'm happy with these guys, so that means that they get the opportunity to try their craft somewhere else.
Right.
What just disappoints me is that some of these guys have potential that WWE squandered.
Well, and it's another thing we need to also mention and make the point of saying, and it's tough to conceptualize because WWE has been the big man on campus for so long. Not every wrestler works and fits into WWE's format and style of wrestling. Because there is certainly, as far as like the actual logistics of where the cameras are, how they shoot the wrestling, that's part of what the Performance Center is about, is focusing where are the cameras, where he's supposed to look, how he's supposed to react here, where he's supposed to go there. A lot of that is the television part of it. And not everybody is accustomed to or even more so, not even everyone is fit for that format. And you could tell certain people who aren't a part of that, and it's not to say that any of these people are or are not. It's just that sometimes with these companies, and personally, this is the thing that I'm thinking of. We always complain, Sky, about how big this roster is and yet how thin it feels.
Because no one feels like a star, and they're interchangeable, and they can do whatever the hell they want. But at the end of the day, I can fire and hire more wrestlers whenever I want to, whenever I want to.
Now, let me ask you this, Guy. Is anyone on this list somebody you feel right now is must-have? Would you draft any of these people? We're going to be doing that later on. Would you draft any of these people here tonight?
Have a happy show.
I would, but I'd have to do a lot of damage control.
Exactly. It's just sometimes this is what WWE does. They love beating these talent in the powder, then releasing them when they are literally about as useless to them as they can. But part of it is just like a lack of clicking on the other end of that too. It's tough in these situations because I see both sides of this coin.
Right. Well, either way, hopefully these guys and girls can do well, and whether or not they continue in the wrestling business or they move on, I hope they find success.
Me too. Me too. Best of luck in your future endeavors, but we mean that sincerely.
We do. Now, moving on to our next story, and about someone who blew a .205 blood alcohol level.
Oi.
Jimmy Uso got arrested for a DUI again.
How does it work when you're like traveling from state to state? I literally don't know this. Genuine question here. So when you're traveling from state to state and you've got a license, which you've gotten in whatever state you've gotten it in, how many of those do you need in separate states before you actually like those all accumulate on your license and you get that license taken away? Because it differs in every state, doesn't it?
It's pretty close. Now, Sean, I have a question for you. How many DUIs has Jimmy Uso had?
I'm going to say 5. Am I close?
You're close. 4.
Okay. All right. I gave him one more than he needed.
This is 4. This is his 4th. So apparently what happened is that he was arrested at 10:35 on July 5th after he ran a red light, clocked going 50 and a 35, and he had a .205.
Now, was he weaving in and out of traffic? Is that what
that's also apparently part of it, is that he ran a red light, he was going 50 and a 35, and he was swerving in traffic.
Well, just from a practical level, there are some instances where 50 and a 35, while discouraged, can be executed without issue. Then again, I live in Connecticut where the police are, I don't want to say lax about speeding, but they're definitely, that's not the first thing they're looking for. That's just, but in any event.
How many times could David Letterman go on the mare and drive as fast as he could?
Yeah. I mean, seriously, he had his license taken away after like years and years of driving that. But he went, what? I think it was 135 on the merit all the time before they finally were like, all right, you're banned from this highway forever. But it took a long time for them to reach to that conclusion. But so that I can forgive. But the weaving in and out of traffic and the blowing the red light, it's like, come on, man, that you can't do.
And it's his 4th. Not only that, but 3 out of his 4 DUIs happened in Florida.
Well, everybody just runs amok down in Florida, and I know this to be fact. I've been down there, so it's just. Right. But it's interesting because certain people don't know the routes to take, and like there's certainly. Florida is a very interesting state. That's all I'm going to say. It's a very interesting state. It's the best state. It's very interesting. It's very interesting when they decide to enforce what they consider to be laws.
And by the way, one more thing about this.
Which is why AEW and WWE were both essential businesses. To continue.
Yes, as well as a certain Mr. 45 living in his own golf residence.
Yes.
Anyways, apparently a lot of officials in WWE are upset at Jimmy Uso, but right now there are no plans to change anything. Of course, this is subject to change. they could decide to change things in the future.
Well, you don't want to upset Alpha and Sika.
You don't want to upset Roman, although at this point, at what point does Roman get involved with these two? Like, in real life, Roman needs to come in and clean these guys' clots. Jay is fine. He's only had one DUI. You compare it.
Oh, wow.
So he's a good brother.
Yeah. Yeah, Carl Anderson is nowhere to be found.
But Jimmy is just, like, and by the way, this is his third DUI in 3 years. Like, he had one in 2011. No, his fourth DUI in 4 years. So he had it in 2018, 2019, 2019, and 2021.
I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, I feel like kayfabe-wise, it would make sense for Roman Reigns to be like, all right, stop. But I don't know what the real dynamic is like, you know? It's like, I don't know what their actual, relationship is, or whether that's some, it's hard to say, because I feel like this, I hate to bring it to the Samoan, this NOI family, but I feel like they've lived a long time without real repercussions. In the WWE, that is.
Well, I mean, that's because look at who their cousin is and look how much power he has.
Right. But that inevitably does have an effect, I would imagine, to have that kind of... I mean, think about how many people Nia Jax has bashed in the past 4 years. Like, stuff where you'd be like, get her back to training if it were anybody else, but Nia Jax is still around busting people open.
But that's an in-ring wrestling thing. This is a guy who at one time was arrested in Detroit, Michigan because he drove the wrong way on a one-way street. And when he got out of the car with the officers talking to his own wife, Naomi, Jimmy Uso confronted the officers by taking off his shirt and sticking up to them.
I don't know what's going on with Jimmy, right? I don't know what's going on in his life. I can't speak on this as a level of like what should and should not be done. I hope that whatever's getting at Jimmy, I hope somebody can get to the root cause of it so that he can be better as a result. But he's going to want that too. Maybe
just hopefully him and his brother and Jeff Hardy don't start a stable called Alcoholics Anonymous.
Well, we say these jokes playfully as Josh again is chomping on another head of a Keebler elf, but it's
right.
It's just keeping things in perspective with Jimmy. It's like, listen, I've had an uncle who has gone down the alcoholism route, and it's like, you see the signs. It's not just playful. But at what point does some disciplinary action have to be done? Because if nothing's going, if this is the fourth one, he's been employed there for almost a decade. At what point is WWE like, you got to stop this unprofessional behavior? Where is the company? When does the company step in and take issue with this? Any other company would.
Well, I mean, it's WWE and it's Vince McMahon. As long as you make money for him and you're not too much of a troublemaker, he'll put up with your attitude. Era Shawn Michaels in the 90s.
You know what, though? This whole thing, I know this is going to sound bad, but this is another one of those deals that kind of makes me feel a little bit bad for Enzo for why he was released, because it was unproved evidence that there was no evidence and it actually had not happened. And he got fired because of that and never came back.
Okay, yes, but also Enzo Amore is a piece of shit.
I know. I'm not, but I'm saying just in that particular instance, if that's going to be the standard for him, how is it 4 DUIs is fine for somebody else?
I mean, we'll see what happens.
If people get drug tested for certain performance-enhancing things in WWE, this just throws into question the whole drug policy and the whole wellness policy. Where do the consequences lie? Why do the consequences lie? It's just... How is it that nobody is looking at this?
It's not fair. You're right. It's not fair, and it's something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, and I feel like the more we hear these stories all the time, when is somebody going to finally like prod the bear on this? Who has some means to do so?
Well, maybe it has to be Maybe it has to be Roman Reigns with a guillotine choke.
Oh, God. If we have an intervention, Jimmy guillotines him. All right. Guaranteed he's not getting a DUI now. He's passed the fuck out.
Right, exactly. You don't need the drinks. You just need Roman Reigns.
Jesus.
Anyways, we're going to end the news of the week on the return of one wrestler. Many wrestlers were released over the past year, but one has been brought back. And no, I'm not talking about Eva Marie, because fuck Eva Marie. We're talking Selena Vega.
Yes. And boy, what an interesting return it has been.
Yep. Put into Money in the Bank by Sonya Deville and then lost to freaking Liv Morgan.
I feel like and then, of course, having her whole deal with, I think somebody got paid real well, and that was Selena Vega. But also, I believe that wasn't the guy who was causing all that third-party issue just fired by Nick Kahn? Wasn't that one of the guys? Didn't they just like completely wipe that whole team? They did a whole bunch of speaking of like the sweeping and cleaning of the rosters. They eradicated their whole video production program. I think part of their whole third-party deal thing. I think the guy who was running that also got canned.
You are correct. He is canned.
So makes you think that maybe they knew that Zelina was talented enough where they could not afford to lose her on a very extended basis.
And if you notice, a certain political candidate for New York mayor that was supporting her and possibly talking about unions has quietly shut the fuck up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you never know.
I don't think professional wrestling unions are ever going to come back.
Well, you never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to happen. For the amount of things that we've seen happen in the past couple of years, you never know what's going to happen with WWE. It seems like its identity is changing as we speak.
It is.
And
now, on the one hand, I will say I'm glad Zelina Vega is back because, for one thing, that SmackDown Women's Division is so thin that if Zelina Vega wins on a couple of matches, she could get a title shot.
Needs her. I 100% agree.
But at that same point, though, does she bring that much to the division that makes you excited to watch her for years on end?
I think if you built her enough, if you treated her like she should, then yeah. But I don't know whether they have any intention to do that or whether she's just going to be another one of the mid-card bodies that ends up teaming up with Natalya at some point.
To become the tag team champion.
Yeah.
As they defend the championships against the champion and one of her rivals.
Yeah, who knows? It depends on how much they truly value her in the ring and what they value her for. So I'm glad to see you back. I hope they use you right.
I just hate the fact that she did the red hair thing.
I don't mind it.
No. Let me take this one, okay?
Girls. Promo cut.
Girls, I'm talking to you specifically. Either go all the way with the red hair dye or whatever color you do for your hair dye, or don't. Don't do this half-ass Matt Hardy blood red mohawk.
It's the thing with I cannot speak either way because I personally enjoy all the fun colored hair and the diversity of all the ladies' hairs. But I do agree that there is a level. There is a level that too much is too bad. I look at Shotzi Blackheart, where it's like it's just a little bit too much. Because it's a little loud because you're trying to make your hair part of your screaming personality, which is most of the time just screaming. And it's just I understand where you're coming from, Sky. I don't personally have a problem with it, but I see where you're coming from. But we can only fantasize. We can only fantasize.
Bianca Belair's hair is a gimmick and it works.
It does, but it's also natural colored.
That is true.
You know, that's kind of part of it. You know, you can only do, you would not enjoy it if it was dyed blue the entire way down.
No.
Yeah, you wouldn't enjoy it.
Actually, no. I'm fine with someone who dyes their hair all the way one color. What I'm not a fan of is that Zelina did the little part above her head and the rest of it is black.
I mean, I used to date a girl who did that kind of thing with the roots bleached and did all that kind of stuff. So I never really had much of an issue with it myself. It just depends on who is it and how it's done. So maybe it just didn't work in your eyes for Zelina.
Right. By the way, I will say it's funny that you and me have critiqued women and their fashion in the past, even though the fact that you and me have no style.
Well, speak for yourself, sir. In fact, I fantasize all the time about how much more style I'm going to be incorporating to my already fantastic, splendiferous, baby. The high-profile style that I live my life by. And speaking of...
Who needs style when you could dress like a champion for the people? People power.
Well, and speaking of people who have been used as authority figures, we have to talk. We didn't really mention it last time. We are doing things a little bit differently today, folks, because as Skylar mentioned, we're going to have a draft a little bit later. But it is the 1-year anniversary of when Skylar and I started doing this a year and a month. Because we are, in fact, in July, and we started this in June of 2020. And we thought it would be fun to just talk about this past year, what we've liked, what we haven't liked, what have been the challenges, just kind of reminisce a little bit about the good times as they are. So, Sky, I'm going to let you begin here because I personally have really enjoyed how much depth you've brought into the National Wrestling League.
Well, thank you. When you came up to me with this idea about making a fantasy wrestling league, I said yes. And what I was thinking was, what is it about wrestling nowadays that I don't like? And what would I do if I had a wrestling company? And the thing I took inspiration from was UFC and how they do wrestling rankings. And I thought, that's a sports thing. Rankings, because people love to rank shit.
Yep,
it's how
all
it
the
goes.
time.
No. So let's add an actual rankings, but not just one that's static and it just stays forever, like that one time they did a list in 2017, which God was stupid.
Yeah, it didn't work.
But what could make that idea work? Let's have matches with wrestlers between those rankings. Let's have these guys fight for rankings to get a title shot, a world title shot. Let's make the journey to the world title what is important.
Well,
you can start at the bottom and work your way up.
That's what I thought was super interesting about your show is like not only were you making like the rankings involved in this, like as far as like them all mattering as far as the context of who's where, but you also incorporated those rankings into your show and into like the angles that you were doing with the show. And that's something that you really don't see in professional wrestling at all. You know, that's a relatively new concept for WWE. The closest thing that I can accompany it to is when they sometimes would do that with the Power 25 on the video games that they would make. But they never really would do, this level 4 guy has to face the level 3 guy, and this is, they never made the stakes the ranks. And I thought that was such a unique concept for what wrestling could be in the modern era.
Now, here's the thing. Do you know where I kind of got the idea from?
Where?
TNA.
Yeah, they did. They kind of did that, but it never really worked out the way I think that they wanted it to.
Like in 09 and 10, they had the idea, and then they dropped it because they gave up on it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, 2009 and 2010 was a great year and also simultaneously a really rough year for TNA.
But that's the thing is I made the rankings a gimmick, and it worked as a gimmick because these guys had something to fight for if they weren't involved in the world title picture.
Well, and it also puts stakes on matches that wouldn't have some otherwise, and it doesn't necessarily have to have an angle or an afterbirth attached to it because the rank match itself is the gimmick.
Exactly. And then there are other things too, like the one thing about the ranking system that I wish it's inherent and something I could do in the future if I really had an expanded roster and more time is applying it to the tag team division and the women's division. But I think the issue with that is that you would need so many people in a company in order to do that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And then roster size, as we found out, has been a very interesting dynamic going into these shows, because you have people that you want to factor in that you can't, but simultaneously you feel like you don't have enough people to get a diverse amount onto the playing field. So you're keeping everybody involved, but you also want to cycle people out so they're not getting too repetitive. And it's a hard balance.
Exactly. Like what I did is that I have people that I said, okay, these are the people I need on my show every single week, and that's usually the champions. And then there are the people who I don't need, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give this person a month or two off. Let them cool down, let them do stuff, and with the hindsight that maybe they're wrestling matches on TV because I'm doing pay-per-view formats, and each month is a different pay-per-view.
Right.
And let the context of that they're winning matches on TV, and then when they show up, I can retell the story, and it just works simply.
Right. And it also makes your events feel, even though each one of your events is a pay-per-view and it always looks and feels like a stacked card, every card still segues into the next big event. So where you don't necessarily have to watch the television program to follow along, but there's still a lot of context in that television program that would further add to the show. And you can kind of tell that with the way that you frame each one going next to next, as opposed to my weekly, week-to-week format.
Right. Now, I did the modern wrestling style meets UFC mixed martial arts ranking system combined with pay-per-view formats. And you went completely the opposite direction. Talk about your concepts.
Well, the thing is I think there are things in old pro wrestling that could honestly make things a little more engaging in modern wrestling, and most of that involves rules. To tell you the truth,
What a novel concept.
I know, crazy, right? I know. Immediately, I've already lost like half the AEW audience. I know they've already clicked off, gone to watch AEW Dark Elevation and whatever. But for me, I wanted to bring back some concepts and kind of just simplify wrestling again, and kind of just take what made wrestling really good was not so much all the flashy moves, but more what can you get out of these people, and really capitalizing on who the people are and why they're doing these things and what their ultimate goal is. So even though it wasn't rank for rank, every time that everyone had a match, there was a reason where they were going. And I tried not to book anything without knowing where somebody was going, but either at least the week after, if not the next several weeks after. Even though it's hard to do when you change, obviously plans change all the time, as we've figured out almost every single time we've done this. But playing around with things like the time limit draw, when was the last time limit draw you saw on AEW television? Remember when they said those were going to matter?
Nope.
Yeah. So I think the last...
Hold on. When is the last time WWE had a match that had a time limit?
Oh, God. That's... I don't know. God, I don't even know when the last time WWE ever did a time limit draw. That's a really fascinating question. But they got...
The last time I remember there were time limit rules was during the CWC, during the Cruiserweight Classic. But, by the way, that's another thing that I took inspiration from, was that Sports Center-esque tournament show, sports feeling. It was really the last bit of thing that WWE produced that actually had a sports feeling to it.
Yeah, I was going to say probably the King of the Ring. Probably their King of the Ring, the most recent one. I forget which. Was that the one that Sheamus won? Oh, no, not talking Corbin. Forget Corbin. But King of the Ring.
Sheamus won King of the Ring in 2010, 11?
Yeah, that was a while ago. But I think they did it then. I'm not sure they did it for the most recent one. Or for Barrett.
Mentioned in the ring intros, and this match is one fall with a blank time limit.
Yeah. But whether those were adhered to, I'm not sure either. But I tried to make it so that where the time limit is such a valuable means of not hurting either guy. One of the things that bothers me about pro wrestling today is that somebody's got to be on top and somebody's got to be on the bottom no matter what, unless it's a dumb finish half the time. Or if it's, it's with the exception of the occasional disqualification that makes sense. Most of the time, you don't get a neutral, where nobody's lost and nobody's won. So it's still, you can add to people's aura with a time limit.
Right. Like, if anything, the rankings are my gimmicks rule that I added. The time limit draw is your gimmick rule.
Yeah, well, one of them. Because, of course, and I haven't used this one very often. And I think I've often forgotten sometimes when I book these matches, but I haven't really booked any springboards up to this point, but the top rope over the top disqualification. We can't throw anybody.
Well, you're going with the 70s, 80s style wrestling, and most of those guys in those eras didn't do springboards. They didn't do high-flying moves, with a couple of exceptions, like maybe a Trevor Mann or a Finn Balor.
Right, and that's not to say... And that's not to say that I don't have those guys do high-flying stuff. It's just that they can't rely on the ropes for that. It's like they can't. There's a lot of high-flying stuff you can do without necessarily. And going off the top rope was never a problem. And springboarding into the ring was never a problem. You know, there's just certain things I'm trying to avoid, a la the dives and the big hoopla that comes out. I know they'll do those tope suicidas, but I'm going to be very selective as to who gets to do what, which I have not. Right. I think I have not booked a dive yet, maybe one.
But that's the thing, though. That forces guys like Trevor Mann to be creative in ACPW.
And the thing is, I know that Trevor Mann is capable of that. Right? I know that he's psychologically sound. It would not be difficult for him or for a Shorty G, even though Shorty G doesn't really do a lot of the high-flying stuff, but it's still, there's a lot of these people like Gargano and Ciampa wow, I guess I really don't have a lot of high flyers on this show. I'm looking at my list now. I'm like, Kenny Omega would be severely limited.
I mean, you have Gargano, you have Trevor Mann, you have Finn Balor. Those are probably your three biggest high flyers.
Darby Allin, maybe, even though I job him.
Yeah, Darby Allin's a tough one because a lot of his offense requires high flying.
Well, this is why I just job him. But he lays his punches in, and I think that he would still be able to do just fine. But this way, I don't use the over-the-top rope disqualification often because that's one that's very easily abused, which would, I think, hurt it. It would hurt it.
Right. And then on your next show, you're going to have 5 over-the-top rope disqualifications.
Right. Or a draw. You know, you can't do the draws too often. I've been real selective as to when I've had people go to a draw because I want it to be the feud continuer that it's meant to be.
Right. Now, I have a question for you.
Yes.
What are your 3 favorite story/matches that you have created for ACPW? And then I'll answer with my 3 favorites.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, God, that's tough. I do really like what I did with Cody and MJF.
That was probably one of your better feuds.
I think that Cody and MJF, as far as what they were talking about, the subtle, the slow descent of Cody Rhodes into who he actually is, and MJF, you know, the test of MJF as a babyface, I'm not sure if that experiment has succeeded, to tell you the truth. But I feel like with MJF, I wouldn't want to push him too hard too fast because he is still young. And even though he's incredibly good, he's an incredibly good athlete, I think that he needs some mid-card time before he got to the top. And I think the feud with Cody was a good way to show that he's capable of higher-end feuds, but it's not a downgrade by any means not feuding with him either. But I did really like that one.
Plus, with the future, when MJF does turn on someone, it's going to be shocking, and it will maximize a heel turn.
Right. And the second, FTR and the Hardys, that was just fun.
Obvious. Like, I think that was my favorite just because the payoff was so good.
Yeah, I mean, it had to be what it was. It took the whole year. It took the entire year to get to that, but that was my plan from the beginning. My plan was to have FTR fuck over the Hardys on the first night. They get another shot later on. They get fucked over again because of Cornette. They have to solve it. No one gets in, no one gets out, and demonstrate what a steel cage match is and why it's had.
Exactly.
And that was it. And that was really fun. And as far as the third, I really like how I've framed Titus O'Neil, the person.
The Titus O'Neil one is also a really good story.
I think just him in general, it was never capitalized on enough just how great of an actual human being Titus O'Neil is. And just to have him be just that, and that demonstrative. He's I think he's incredibly natural as a babyface. He was the babyface of him and Hogan.
That's saying something.
Just saying. It's like he's very natural in that role. And it was just to the fact where you wanted to draft Titus O'Neil when we did the redraft. That's how I knew that was working.
Because I would have wanted him to be one of my guys because he would be such a great babyface.
Yeah. I've always, even when I first saw him as part of the Primetime Players, I said, that dude's got potential. And we mentioned it before. He's another one of those guys that they were smart enough to keep, but they just never had any real plans for. And it's a shame.
Disappointing with the things that they've done with him.
It is really a shame because I always thought Titus O'Neil had the look, had the personality, and especially now he can talk a lot better now than he used to. He could have been in alternate universe. He could have been a world champion.
Yes, unfortunate that he never reached his potential.
It really
in this
is.
Universe.
So I wanted to take Titus and make something out of Titus because I've always believed in the man, and I know that I'm happy that he feels more important now than he did walking in.
Right.
How about you, sir?
Another rated one I do want to mention because I personally enjoyed it was the feud between the wrestling's finest.
Oh,
so
yes.
I feel like all four of those guys. I know it's the fourth one. Like those first three were probably your best ones, but shout out to those four because those four, and they're having the feud right now in real life.
Yes, and even though it's not quite to the reasons why, but it just
proving that WWE steals from ACPW too.
Yeah, well, when the booking's good, they have to be like, hold my beer and this bottle of vodka, and I'm gonna book it better, and they never book it better. But
right.
But in any event, to be fair, I did really enjoy where I took that because I wanted to make them feel important, even though that generally their size is relatively smaller than the rest of the roster. But I thought the best people that they could interact with were themselves.
Right. Plus, you never know. They could come back together in the future.
Yeah. You never know. You never know.
Yeah, you never say never in wrestling.
That's right. So what are your three?
Let's see here. I loved when I was able, because I think in hindsight in the draft, we both slept on Kevin Owens.
Absolutely.
And I love taking Kevin Owens and making him into a main eventer world champion who was so vicious.
Yeah, no, he definitely... Kevin Owens, I think because his spark is so much lost in WWE, the way that you brought him back into immediate relevancy like they did when he arrived, but slowly built him into the dominant guy that he really is, it was very well executed because it was not something that I was expecting, I suppose, from Kevin Owens. Again, because WWE has been sleeping on him, I've been sleeping on him. So it was nice to make him feel as important as he could be.
Not only was it I made him dominant, well, I didn't make him dominant like a big Hawks monster. I made him dominant in a heel wish way because he cheats to win.
Right.
He's insecure about himself and thinking that he's the second fiddle even though he's world champion.
Yep.
I made him a heel who had depth to his character. And that's something he hasn't had since his NXT and first feud with John Cena.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it's something that it was something that WWE failed to capture on that you reignited, which I think was really helpful. And I think was also really nice because it kept your title picture fresh because you had a lot of viable options to choose from. And that's something also with your roster. You have a stacked roster, sir.
Yes, I did. And the Kevin Owens story of him being the dominant, well, not dominant, but the aggressive champion and also a heel that was cheap through and through helps elevate the Edge storyline, which is personally my favorite storyline.
Mine too. Mine too. I mean, that was from start to finish. That was the best told story of anything you've done, hands down.
Right. And it had layers to it too. He lost to the Velveteen Dream, even though that was redacted.
Right.
He lost to Kevin Owens and paid it back for that story in the future. He had a mini feud with Seth Rollins when Seth Rollins tried to have him join the Black Hand. Yep. Established that Edge is doing it not just for himself, but his family. He wants his daughters to see him as champion.
It was it was what his return should have been.
It's what his return should have been.
Yeah. And it was not.
And it was not.
And once again, our collective sighs just breed unfathomable disappointment in the state of modern wrestling.
But I did it right.
You did. And your third.
And my third, I love the stuff with Pat McAfee and Eric Bischoff.
You know, I really do enjoy it. I enjoy it, how it's going. The Almighty Crew, I really enjoy the Almighty Crew as a group. I think that it's something, it doesn't feel like it does with what I've got going with the Cult. You know, it's got a completely different attitude, a completely different tone, but you've got that same kind of badassery that comes with a group like that. Everyone's taken seriously, everyone's used seriously, and they're not playing tickle taint with each other.
They're cocky and they're arrogant, but they have the right to be cocky and arrogant because they're all champions and they all won, even though sometimes it wasn't clean.
But when business got down to business, it was game time. They were focused.
Right.
And that was what I really enjoy about the entire thing. Personally, the one that I think that my favorite, besides Edge, obviously, was just the fact that you kept Drew on top for a year. And you made that title feel so damn important around Drew's waist. And
I don't think they did the same thing too, though. Like, they had Drew be champion, and they haven't been champion for a long time. It's just that they fucked it up by having him lose it to Randy at SummerSlam. No, not SummerSlam. Hell in a Cell.
Well, I also thought that sometimes his opponents were not ideal. Every time that you brought somebody up into that echelon, there was a solid reason for it, why and how, and WWE, that's not their strong point. It never has been their strong point. No, it used to be their strong point. It definitely is not their strong point now. But you were able to make each title match feel different, have a different good reason be going on, and still not make us feel like Drew is just beating the piss out of everybody and nobody can take him down.
He was having the fight of his life every time he was facing up a new challenger. And when he was going, think about it, he beat the best of the best of the roster until Kevin Owens.
He did. And then the injury, of course.
And then he got injured because Kevin Owens was a dastardly man, and now they're going to fight each other. And so there's a score to settle there.
Yes, there is. And it's been a fun year. Without a doubt, it has been a really fun year of ACPW and NWL, and I'm excited to keep it moving. And as a result, I think it's time. Are you ready, sir?
I'm ready.
All right, it is time. We are doing the 10-slot supplemental draft. Now, couple points here. Because Edge has been dropped from Skylar's roster, he is going to get an additional pick. He's going to do that at the very end. So we're going to trade off. I'm going to start. Sky's going to go next, ACPW, NWL, and the like until we get to 10, and then NWL is going to have one final pick at the very, very end. We are also going to be giving each other pick number 10. Everybody else we can choose, but pick number 10 is a trade-off with each other. Not necessarily to mess with them, but not necessarily not to mess with them. Singles, of course, can be taken. Tag teams can be taken. If they're both still wrestling and it's an old tag team, we'll allow it, a la the bar, a la beer money. So
they have to be an active wrestler.
They both have to be active wrestlers. If that's going to be the case.
They can't, and no drafting dead wrestlers.
Yes, well, which we have not done.
Oh, Josh is going to force us to.
Well, this is actually, I guess this is a good point as any to mention that we are going to be in addition to drafting on this show, our sister channel, totally awesome podcast, TAW Gaming, is going to be launching their own Outlaw Mud Show promotion to be the ECW to our WCW and WWE, only way better because we're ACPW, NWL. He is going to be making an announcement. Actually, he's already made the announcement, I believe, on TAW Gaming. So check that out as far as the name. And we will be there on his show in soon. We don't know exactly when yet, but soon, to figure out who he's going to draft and be there for what he's going to be doing. So check out the ECW to our main 2 show on TAP, on TAW Gaming's channel. So stay tuned for that. That's coming.
By the way, speaking of, do you know what picture he used for the freaking for his video?
I shudder to think.
So it's a picture of me being represented by Kurt Angle, you being represented by Biker Taker, and him being represented by Triple H, but with his head on top of Triple H's head.
That's fair. I'll be Biker Taker. I think that's accurate. You have a Kurt Angle, sir.
I have a Kurt Angle. He's my general manager.
Yeah, so I think that works out just fine.
Josh, again, you work us so well.
Yes. And actually, you know what? While we're here, we're going to do this live. Do you want to actually dig into this show and find out what its name is? We're recording this on the day he's releasing this video.
I can look it up.
Yeah,
I can look it up.
Let's take a quick look.
Anyways, before we continue on, I do want to mention that because I went first last time, my good friend, the colonist, Sean McCarty, will be going first.
Yes. So while Skylar is finding out the name of Josh Again's promotion, I will go into depth and explain my first pick. Now, as it was mentioned by Arn Anderson. Oh, I can hear his voice. Oh, God, I can hear his voice. Dear God, he's invaded our show. And
by the way, it's apparently South Carolina Championship Grappling.
SCCW. SCCG. All right. I will so if you want to see some SCCG TV, that is a mouthful. Head on to TAW Gaming, the totally awesome podcast. My first pick. As Arn Anderson mentioned last week or last month, it is time for a women's division. And just not for nothing, Sky, but have you looked at my women's division lately?
Your women's division is 3 women.
Let me read it off to you. It's Selena Vega, Dr. Britt Baker, and Shakily Dakily Katie Forbes.
That's actually not a bad group to start with. It's a decent foundation.
To be fair, I have no intention of having Katie Forbes wrestle unless absolutely necessary. But I do need.
You could.
I could, but I do need some women's wrestlers. I mean, technically she's got a slot, but I do need my women's wrestlers. And this women's wrestler is not the one that I promised I was leaving for you. I am going to leave her for you. My first pick is a woman who how do I put this? You asked me earlier whether I was going to watch AEW programming and why I bother to watch AEW programming. And part of it is because for every shit show match there's one little gem that I could glean out of that and be like, there is something there. Or there's something that's really good there that is just not being properly showcased because that's what AEW does. This person had arguably the best match or one of the best matches on their most recent pay-per-view, for which Double or Nothing. I almost forgot the name of the pay-per-view. Thanks, AEW. But this woman wrestled in the pre-show. And this woman...
Oh, don't do it. Don't do it.
This woman has proven to me that she can do anything with anybody and make it pass off as a viable fight, a viable competition, can work her ass off. Former NWA champion. My first pick of the supplemental draft is Serena Deeb.
Oh.
Welcome aboard.
I wanted Serena Deeb. She was going to be my second pick.
Yeah, not going to happen. She is so highly desirable. Good God, that woman is... that match with Riho, Scott, you got to watch this match. Because this...
And not for Riho.
No, literally, Serena Deeb works a terrific match by herself, and Riho is there. But it's for the pure sake of seeing how talented Serena Deeb is. I recommend you all watch that match from the pre-show or the buy-in of Double or Nothing, because it's worth it. That will tell you why I picked Serena Deeb. Or go watch any of her matches that are actually really good with somebody that can actually work.
Fair enough. Now, while you take Serena Deeb, and she was a great pick, and she was going to be my second pick, I'm glad you did not take this woman. Arguably the best heel in women's wrestling right now, and maybe the best heel in wrestling in general. I select San Jose's own Bayley.
That was not a surprise. And you've got the hometown advantage, too, if you don't want to make her a heel.
No, I'm going to make her a heel. She's going to be a heel to everyone else but here.
Oh, I know. So there you go. There you go. So,
and that's the thing, though, is that she can go to Los Angeles and get massive amounts of heat.
Yeah. I'm going to have to take your word on that. But I know that she'll get heat anywhere she goes, because Bayley is absolutely terrific. Now, on to the rest of the draft board, because Serena Deeb was really the only one I was trying to snag. Absolutely, positively did not want to miss out on her. My next pick, because I've got some pretty good people in here right now, but of course we need more. And there was a woman just recently released that I would like to gobble up, because I need, it's just like Serena Deeb, I need some experience, I need some star power, and that star power can help propel the rest of the women. My second pick is Mickie James.
I figured you were going to go Mickie James.
Mickie James I've always thought that she was good, even though it was a weird angle in 2006, but she backed it up in the ring. So I have nothing to complain about. James Storm tried to kill her once on Impact Television. Did not appreciate that. And she's married to the NWA champion. That's just an interesting
Who you
fact.
may or may not bring, because I jot them out.
Well, we'll see how the rest of the draft goes. But Mickie James, welcome aboard. Love having that kind of experience in the women's division.
Okay. So this next pick I make consciously knowing that there's a certain set that has to be complete.
Of individuals.
So in the second pick, I select Sasha Banks.
Fair enough. You know, I'm happy you're taking Sasha, because I didn't really want Sasha. I had her on my list. I didn't really want Sasha. I always thought that she, in my opinion, is the weakest of the four. I like Becky, I like Bayley, I like Charlotte. Sasha.
But that's the thing about the Horsewomen, is that there's one woman for each and every different type of fan. And
Sure. Sasha
reaches out to a different type of fan that Bayley or Charlotte or Becky reach to.
True. Oh, no, I absolutely. And Sasha, you're going to do justice to Sasha more than WWE has done justice to Sasha, even though she just main evented WrestleMania. So I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
I'll make it even better.
But that's right. That's right. Yes, and. So that brings it back to me, I suppose. And I'm going to be just kind of running on this women's division here for a little bit, because I really like what I'm doing with the men. I only need a couple things with the men. I really do need a women's division that is not just like 3 people. So,
well, you have 4 right now, so
5 if you count Katie. And with the next pick, I'm gonna pick a woman who, personally, I think could be either a nasty heel or a very solid baby face. Because I think she does both fairly well, and she's a very attractive woman, but she's also got some size to her, so she's got a good look. With my next pick, I'm going to choose former NWA champion Allison Kaye.
That's a solid pick. That's an underrated pick, and it's a very solid pick.
She was, when NWA Power first launched, and I was watching it because Admittedly, Corny did it before Lagana did his whole deal, and that soured me on the whole proposition. Sorry, Billy. But back then,
sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, but back then, Allison Kaye was putting on some quality matches, and from what she was doing, the little that she's done in AEW, she is also another worker that is valuable, and I'm gonna snag her up and use her because she fits my format.
Exactly. And while you snap up that, I will finish the set. I select Becky Lynch.
Is she back? Is that
so? She's preparing for her return. There's rumors that she's going to appear at SummerSlam, and I'm going to take her preemptively.
Okay, that's fair enough. You take your 4, and you take that whole horsewoman thing, and you ride that till the wheels come off.
Exactly, just like WWE has with their women's division.
That's right. However, I'm going to keep my options elsewhere. Because if you've noticed, with the exception of Mickie James, who is now ironically on NWA programming, with the exception of Mickie James, I've really stayed out of WWE's pool.
Well, you have Selena Vega.
Well, I mean, from the draft, from what I'm doing here.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm going to actually break that this time. Because I need somebody who I may not use at first, but I may drop in later. But I feel like I want to gobble her up, and I cannot believe I'm saying this because I thought of anyone that WWE was going to use right and figure out how to do properly. It was her because it was so easy. With my 4th pick, I choose Shayna Baszler.
She's going to fit your style perfectly, but you're going to have to work really hard to get the stink off.
I know. It's just, you see why I was frustrated, because it's like, why? Just, all I got to say is why. What's your pick?
Okay. Okay. So now that I have established women, and I've got a very established stacked roster.
You do. You very much do.
I need to go and get more project women. Women who not necessarily are ready right now, but will be ready in the future and ready to take on the future. With that in mind, I'm going to NXT. I'm taking a really big chance on this roster spot. But I see things in this woman who I believe will be really, really powerful and can really be a force in the women's division. I select the NXT Women's Champion, Raquel Gonzalez.
She's definitely got a look.
Or, as she's formerly known as, female Kevin Nash.
Well, but that's not necessarily a knock. You know, everyone knocks Kevin Nash for, like, not being great in the ring and having some cement mixers of matches, you know, in the early days. But, like, Nash, he knew what to do still. I mean, Raquel Gonzalez could still very much find success. I see her, like, as a much smarter and not completely psychotic Sid. Where, like, she'll make you $1 million in a night, but she's not going to make you $5 million over the course of 5 years, potentially. But I feel like if anyone can change that kind of narrative, it would be you, sir.
And the good thing with Raquel is that she's gotten much, much better.
Yes.
As she's gotten more experience, she is really starting to develop.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, we're at the halfway point, and I'm not stopping on the femme train anytime soon. Because I need a women's roster, and damn it, I'm going to give myself a halfway decent women's roster. So the next pick I'm going to choose is somebody who, for better or for worse, fills out roster, whether she is necessarily the best in the ring is a little irrelevant for what she brings to the table otherwise. But she doesn't necessarily have to be as factored in on the show as sometimes she is. And because a certain somebody isn't going to be busting a goddamn nut every time she's on the fucking state, I'm not going to have to deal with that either. So with the next pick, I'm going to take Carmella. I'm taking Carmella.
Oh, damn it.
I'm assuming you wanted her, sir.
I did.
Because Mella is money.
Fuck you.
Excuse me.
But no, Carmella has really done well. She's finally become the wrestler that she had the potential to become, and she can generate heat.
Yeah. She does what she needs to do. It's half of what makes her insufferable is Corey Graves. Seriously. Half of it is Corey.
Well, now you just have to shoot Corey Graves and you're good.
Yeah, no. Well, he's, as far as I know, he's not an ACPW, is he?
No, he's not.
I don't see him anywhere, but could he show up on the NWL? It is your pick.
No, he is not. So I'm going to take a break from the women. I'm going to draft a man.
All right. Who you got?
And I'm not just drafting a man. I'm drafting a big man. And just like you earlier, going into the WWE Women's Division roster that you normally don't go to, I'm going to the AEW roster.
Oh, no.
I'm going through this shit. Shit pile. I'm pulling a diamond because I saw something in him in a match I saw recently, and I can work with this.
Son of a bitch. I know you're going to take now. I'm so upset.
I'm taking Powerhouse Will Hobbs.
God damn it. He was my next pick.
I was waiting. I was like, is he going to take it? Is he going to take it? I had to do it before you took him.
I needed this women's division. I'm so badly. I'm upset, but I'm not upset. Because Will Hobbs, good luck. Because you've got a lot of big guys on your roster. So it's going to be interesting to see how you integrate him into the fold without making him look like just another big guy.
Right. But he's one of those guys that, where did he come from?
I don't know where they found him, but that spine buster of his is fucking incredible.
He's been working the independent scene for basically 10 years before he came to AEW. And I know he was green at the start, but now he's really, really gotten better.
Well, goddamn, you're almost forcing me to respond here. Because I can't just let you take him, somebody who has been around for years, and even though nobody knew where that dude come from, but this guy has gotten a lot of publicity in a good way, I think. And I think that the unfortunate thing is I'm afraid of what's going to happen to him now. And I could go a couple different directions with this. But I looked at my male roster, and I look at who I've got, because I've got heels to beat, I've got baby faces to beat, so I don't necessarily need a jobber. But I can get somebody who, if I don't necessarily use him right now, it's not that much of a problem, because I think he can pop up at any time and make himself captivating. So I don't know what they call him in WWE. I don't care what they call him in WWE. Because with pick number 6, I'm choosing Eli Drake.
He's known as Knight Rider or something.
Yeah, LA Knight or something like that.
Yeah, but, LA Knight.
Yeah. So Eli Drake is going to be in here, and I've heard him cut some killer promos. He knows how to cut. He knows how to work well enough. You know, he definitely he can get it done. He works kind of a style that would fit ACPW.
That's fair. Now that I'm taking my break from the man, I'm going to go back to the women. I'm going to take a woman who has a stupid fucking name.
Okay.
And I need to change that name the second I get the opportunity to.
Oh, I know you
WWE doesn't know a good thing. I'm taking Piper Niven. I'm changing her back to Piper Niven because fuck Dewdrop.
Piper Dewdrop Niven.
Piper Niven.
Got it. Well, I hope that I have not seen her work. She's a big girl.
She's a big girl.
She's a big girl. Good ad. Definitely a good ad. Well,
and she's going to be different from the other women on the roster because
yes.
the other women on the roster are not big in the way that she's big.
Right. And that obviously makes a difference. And for my next pick, I'm going to choose somebody who's got a very interesting look about her. I'm not sure what I can even, I mean, obviously she's gorgeous, but she's definitely, as far as in the ring, she's almost got like a Roman gladiator build. It's like so weird. She's in terrific shape, but she's definitely like into the powerlifting and the sculpting. And I'm all about that because it definitely can work with a really good look like that. Her in-ring work is not too bad. Could and will get better. I believe will get better. With my next pick, I'm picking Camille. Of NWA, for those of you who are not aware of who that is.
That's a very, that's the thing with Camille is that she, no one looks like her. No one, she may have the best figure in women's wrestling. Yeah,
she's got a hell of a look, and there's just something about her. I mean, but still stunning. Nonetheless, it's not like some of these lifters where it's just all muscles. No, she's still got like an incredibly gorgeous figure, and she's got a hell of a look. Her in-ring work is going to get better as it moves on. It's not to say it's bad. It's going to get better as the more she does it.
She's a wrestler that's a very hot prospect, and I think you could make her, no lie, you could make her the star of your division. That's her potential.
She's absolutely. You could totally frame a division around her.
I'm so angry because I would want her so bad. You have no idea, Sean. I hate this. I hate this bitch.
Well, that's because you took Willie Hobbs, baby. Willie Hobbs was my project, baby. I was gonna make him major motion pictures. And
get out of here, Dusty. Get out of here.
Oh, Jesus. That's so. There you go. What's your pick, sir?
All right, so 4, 5, 6. We're at pick number 7.
Number 7.
And my women's division is 11 strong, and I have the top of the division, and I have the middle of the division. Now's the point where I start to need to draft jobbers.
Yes.
And it's not because I think these women are bad, but because I need people to lose so that the women on top can be the women on top. And maybe there could be something if they develop more, if I see more from them in their wrestling matches.
Yep.
But I need to develop them. With that in mind, I'm taking this woman purely because of the fact that I don't think she's a great wrestler. I think she's a good wrestler. But I think she can offer something to the division even if she's not there. I am selecting Mandy Rose.
Mandy Rose? Well, she definitely has very voluptuous assets that she can offer NWL.
I'm hoping to take Mandy Rose and maybe develop her like Carmella. She has a look about her, but maybe if she can develop that in ring, I could work with that.
Yes. I like this. I like this pick as the draft. And part of it is all of these women are beautiful. We're obviously not saying anything about them, but in a way you do also need the not necessarily eye candy, but the really turns all the guys' heads kind of look like Carmella is in my eyes, or even Camille could be if to some people's eyes, but really like Carmella is. And Mandy Rose kind of fits that bill, but that's not to say that she doesn't have a place in a women's division that could be suitable for your needs.
Right, but here's the thing, though. You talk about Camille, no. That woman, she can butter my bread anytime. God.
Well, I'm glad she's not toasting.
It's not just that she has a great look, but she is, again, I cannot say how much anger I have for you for taking that girl.
well, thankfully.
I was planning on taking her with one of my final picks because I was going to say who, and I was going to make her a star and just.
Yeah, she's she's definitely been on my radar. I still watch enough NWA to keep posted on what she's doing, and it is honestly worthwhile. And speaking of people I found in NWA, I'm going to go along the same veins of I need jobbers in my women's division. And I'm going to pick someone whose work I've actually enjoyed as a jobber. I've seen her work several times, saw it in the launch of NWA Power. She's wrestled in AEW a few times on Dark and stuff like that. I actively look out her stuff. Some of it's good, some of it's not. Most of the time it's not because of her, it's because her opponents and just the format of AEW, of course. I'm going to take Ashley Vox. Now, you may not know who she is, but
I feel like that's a solid pick. You're not going to have the draft world champions with every pick. That's just not going to happen. But you need the people to lose, and Ashley's a great jobber.
Yep, she can work, and she can look at the lights, and I'm totally cool with that. In the same way that I've got Man Scout Jake Manning, I feel like Ashley Vox fits that exact same kind of bill.
Right. And speaking of that, I'm going to take another woman who is younger, on the younger side. Like, most of these women are in their late 20s, early 30s, so their primes are now.
Yep.
I'm going to take someone in their early 20s or mid-20s. I'm going to focus on her as a prospect, but she's going to lose a little bit before she wins. But I want her because I see something with her that WWE didn't quite get out of her, and AEW is currently not getting out of her, definitely. I'm taking Ty Conti.
Ty Conti. Well, I'm very interested to see what you'll do with Ty Conti.
Now, fair enough, she's going to lose a little bit because obviously she's going to lose.
She's young, she's learning.
Division is stacked.
Yep.
But in the future, who knows?
Yeah, it all depends on how you build her and when you build her. You never know where you could take somebody when you feel like they're in the mood, or if they're catching wind with the fans, or whatever it is. And now we're at pick number 9, which is the final pick of our choice. Well, my final pick. And my final pick here, I looked at the roster. I think I'm good with the women's division as it is. I really do. I feel like I can handle it. Even though I would like one more, I'm gonna say this is good for right now. For what I'm going for and the people that I have involved, I'm happy with the women's division. It's going to be a fine addition to the ACPW programming. I need a babyface jobber tag team because I just split up DIY. And I don't really want to do that to anybody else I have on this roster. So I need somebody who can be at least somewhat appealing to fans, when they're not wearing tight khakis to the ring or being managed by one of the 7 goddamn deities. So my jobber babyface tag team I'm going to snag is Private Party.
Okay, that's fair.
And rein them in a little bit. It's time to rein these guys in a little bit.
That is fair. And in the same vein, I also need a babyface jobber tag team. And I know it's not the most popular pick, but I just have to do it because I want to do it. I'm taking Fandango and Tyler Breeze.
Taking Breeze. You know what? That's still perfectly good because they're pretty good. It's what they do. They're going to job well for you. They will definitely job well.
Yes, they are.
So
now I have a question. These are the 10th pick. Now, if I assign a wrestler, does she keep her gimmick? Or his gimmick, or whatever gimmick?
I'm going to say no, because this is not Josh Again rules. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that much of a swerve. I want it to be creative as to how you use it. But you can challenge me to try and keep the gimmick, and I will consider it, and I will do my best. But I will not make it a mandatory requirement. Now, before we do this,
know who I was going to give you, don't you?
Before we do this, why don't you take your last one voluntarily before we give these back to each other?
Fair enough. So I have 13 women. I should add another one just so I have 14 and I have an even number. And I don't know if I want to go with a good woman or a bad woman. Just give me 1 second. Hold on, let me think about this.
There's phone calls going on at the NWL waiting hall. He's just answering telephones like an actual draft. He's on 6 different laptops. It's a very exclusively complicated setup at the NWL draft board.
Yes, I have my computer, my Nintendo Switch, and my phone all in my hands, just trying to figure out what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this woman to challenge myself and do something with her.
Okay.
Even though I personally don't see much in her. And I'm doing this as a self-challenge.
Okay.
I'm taking Shotzi Blackheart.
Interesting. Well, at the very least, if you don't feel up to the challenge or if you feel like she's unusable, you can just job her out because that's an easy way to kind of be like, well, just didn't work. And we also have ad drops in 3 months' time.
Well, I want to see if I can do something with her because people keep saying, oh, she's great. Oh, she's great. I want to know why she's great.
Beyond just she drives a little tank.
Stuff. I'm gonna study the notes. I'm gonna look her up. I'm gonna try and figure out what makes her so good and what I can get from her.
Yeah, this is definitely I love doing these because I love watching a match or two of these people kind of trying to get the general gist of what they're about before you go into booking. And now you have to assign me somebody, sir.
And I'm disappointed because I can't give you the exact gimmick.
But you can challenge me to the gimmick. You can still give them to me and challenge me to the gimmick. I will still do my best. I will accept the challenge.
I don't think you're going to like me if I assign you the gimmick.
Well, let me put it this way, Sky. Josh again thought I was going to dislike getting Shorty G because Shorty G gimmick was bad. I turned him into the most solid member of my mid-card. You gave me Katie Forrest because you thought I couldn't do anything or she was unusable, and now she gets more heat than anybody else on the show.
Yes, but here's the thing, Sean. Neither of those two were possessed by the devil.
I'm down. Give me him. I'm all for it. All for it.
I'm challenging you to do something with demon-possessed Alexa Bliss.
All right. I accept that challenge because you know what? There is a way to make that gimmick work that isn't WWE's cartoony garbage. I bet you. I hereby accept this challenge to keep the demonic gimmick, but I'm not keeping the doll.
That's fine.
I'm not keeping the doll,
demon-possessed.
and I'm probably not keeping the swing set.
I mean, you have to come up with something on your own that's creepy.
But I accept the challenge of the demon because I know I could do it better. So
now, who are you going to challenge?
Now, God. Now here's the interesting thing. I want to give you a tag team, but I don't know if I should because I don't want to Ric Flair this situation.
Which is?
Well, I'll explain if I decide not to give him to you. I've got 5 names. I'm between 5 names right now. If I give you a pick number 1, that one I think you would hate it, but you would find a way to you'd probably just job him out. Honestly, you would just job him out. You'd probably just job that guy out. You could probably make something out of her, so I'm not going to choose her. If I give you this person, you will hate it, but you will find a way to make it work. But, I think I'm going to give you the tag team. I'm going to give you the tag team because I'm going to challenge you to extend something that you may not have wanted to. I'm going to give to you because technically both of these individuals are wrestling. The tag team of Edge and Christian.
No.
Yes, sir.
No.
Yes.
I retired Edge already.
They're both still wrestling.
No.
They are both still wrestling. You have to.
I'm not doing it.
You have to.
You're challenging me to take the best story I've ever created for NWL and to piss on it 2 months later.
Who said you had to use it 2 months later? I said at some point.
I'm not going to use either of the...
I said
I have to use them as a tag team. That's the gimmick, right?
That's the gimmick. If I have to do Demon Alexa Bliss, I challenge you to figure a way, even if it's one night only, to make Edge and Christian part of your show. I believe in you.
This is garbage. All right, you know what? Fine, I'll take it. I can work something with Edge and Christian. At least it's Edge and Christian.
It's Edge and Christian, and it's only like 5 months worth of time. So you've got plenty of time, even if it's just once. Like you said, we mentioned, we cycle talent. That doesn't mean everybody has to show up on every show. So there's plenty. And if it's month to month. And if it's month to month. I have a storyline for them. I'm going to do it. He's got it. I know he's got it. We're going to make this happen.
So here's my question. What were the other four?
The other four were Sunny Kiss.
Oh, I would have hated it so bad.
You would have, but you would have jobbed them out, so that wouldn't have mattered.
I would have jobbed them out, so yeah.
Same with this guy. Might have given you Luther.
Oh, that's even worse, though.
And that would have been terrible. I feel like you would have made something good out of Tamina.
No.
You would have.
There's nothing.
I feel like you would have. And the other one was Chris Jericho. But you could have done something with Chris Jericho.
But I wouldn't have liked it.
You could have done something with Chris Jericho, but I was like, none of those are the challenge that Edge and Christian are.
That's fair. Now, do you want to know who your potential picks were?
Yes, please tell me who my prospects were.
Besides Demon Possessed Alexa Bliss, I was also thinking about that zombie girl abandoned in AEW.
I would have had to research who the hell that was.
Just so you know, her gimmick is that she's a zombie, and she once bit what's her name? Who's the women's champion?
Hikaru
Shida. She once bit Hikaru Shida and turned her into a zombie.
Great.
Also, she's like 4'11", and she's like 150 pounds, and she has a flabby belly.
Would have been a wonderful jobber.
No, she would have been awful.
Flabby.
She's not even a really good wrestler. Have you ever seen a match with her? I was thinking of Maki Ito.
I would have enjoyed Maki Ito.
Right. I was, for a brief second, thinking of giving you Santino Marella.
The male version of Santino Marella? I would have done that. I would have totally done that.
Well, I feel like you already had something established, so.
That would have been, I would have had a lot of fun with that, honestly. If I wanted to do a joke like that with Arn Anderson being like, oh, well, at least you're a man this time. Like, what's going on? But.
And then for a male wrestler that I was thinking about, and I know you don't like this man, I was thinking of giving you Braun Strowman.
My difficulty would have been finding a spot for him. I couldn't find a spot for Walter. That probably would have been the same case for Braun Strowman. Fairly. It would have been tough. Fairly. It would have been tough. But we, sir, have got a lot of thinking to do going into next week. So, now, to be fair, next week we have a rule that neither of us are going to use because we're going to implement this at August. Neither of us are going to use these rosters this week, the coming week.
No, this week.
In the July show. But coming up,
they can
in August,
they can appear. They can appear like as a vignette or something like that, but they can't appear on the show.
Right. Yeah. You can have a little Tron or something like that, but that's it. So other than that, that is going to pretty much do it for this group. Now we have to relay this idea to Josh again. And everybody stay tuned for his draft of SCCG, which is going to be on the TAP on TAW Gaming's channel. Everybody stay tuned for that. Stay tuned next week for ACPW versus NWL Season 2, Episode 7, I believe. 6. It's Episode 6 because we had the draft in January. So Episode 6 is coming up. Going to be a great time. We got some very exciting stories to do. Skylar, anything you want to say before we sign off for the lovely folks at home?
This was a fun draft, and I look forward to using each and every one of these men and women to make money, theoretically, of course.
Yes, and maybe in the literal sense, if there's enough of you who like this show, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell button, change it to all, and what a way to end the show with a plug. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. We will see you right after this short commercial break. But you won't get a commercial break because you're going to have to deal with me. Excuse me, as I said, I was training the future wrestlers of today here on this show. So I can't see because I took my glasses off. So now I could see each and every one of your smiling faces. Hello, how are you all doing? So that was our show. And that was the show that was supposed to air last week and didn't because technological issues screwed it all up. But no fear, everyone. We are going to have another show. ACPW versus NWL. Skylar and I recorded the audio earlier. We are going to do it this week, probably either in the next couple of days, and we're going to have the video edited, and we're going to do the exact same thing. So we're going to have the start out here. I'm going to introduce it. We're going to flip it over. You're going to watch the television the same way I did, at least until I get the new editing software. This is going to be the format. We're going to make it happen. So all the same amount of editing, all the same amount of glorious court-martial podcast action. That's how we do it here. Stay tuned. We are going to keep you updated on the Totally Awesome Podcast's draft for SCCG that is coming up now that we are going to make sure to see what he's doing on the sister channel. This is what's going to happen here. So thank you all for watching. As always, I am your Colonial Champion, Sean McCarty, and we will see you later this week, ladies and gentlemen. Take care, everybody.